Hey, it's Jim. I run this account called CGC Sports Illustrated where I talk about graded magazines and the hobby and everything associated with it, mostly Sports Illustrated, but we do some other stuff too. So let's get the latest update from CGC. If you've seen some of my recent videos, you know that CGC has currently shut down the entire grading process for magazines. Now, it's not the case for comics and other collectibles, but for magazines specifically, the entire grading process has been shut down. They did that at the end of December. It's going to last until sometime, hopefully around mid-February. They're going through the process of upgrading their slabs. Needed upgrade. But during this process, they're not moving anything grading along. So it's going to be a little while before I get to some more unboxing videos, but that's giving me an opportunity to do some other fun videos like today's, where we're going to be talking about self-grading your magazine. So one of the biggest questions I always get is, hey, I got a bunch of Sports Illustrateds. Which ones should I get graded? And my answer is always the same. It is, well, like anything else, it depends on the issue and it depends on the condition. Now, what I'm showing here is, this is Ken Griffey Jr.'s first Sports Illustrated. This was 1990, May of 1990. Super collectible, Ken Griffey Jr., Hall of Famer. We all remember that Upper Deck 89 rookie card of his. Just kind of took the entire sports collectibles hobby by storm way back in the day. Still really iconic, and Ken Griffey Jr. still really, really collectible. Okay, that's part one. Depends on the issue, the star. Part two is, depends on the grade and the condition of the issue. So today's video is going to be all about self-grading your magazines. I'm going to go through a ton of different things to look for. When I self-grade my magazines, my target, I want to be within one grading tier plus or minus. So if I project an 8.5, I want to have it at least be an 8.0 to a 9.0. If I project a 9.4, I want it to be a 9.2 or a 9.6. That's my target. It's taken me years to get there, and I still don't always make it all the time. I miss plenty of times. But everybody should have some sort of pre-grading that they do, or else you're just going to be kind of blindly sending issues into CGC and kind of hoping for the best. Not really the best strategy. So let's dig in. I'm going to cover a ton of stuff that has to do with the way I self-grade my issues before I send them to CGC. Okay, so here we have our Ken Griffey Jr. issue that we're going to take a look at. And whenever I self-grade issues, the very first thing I take a look at is the spine. What you're looking for are spine ticks. So let's see here. Right there. That's where the spine kind of crinkles. This is when the magazine's been opened and somebody's read it and you've got a little bit of a crinkle there. Now, a spine tick can be taken out with pressing. However, once it breaks color and that color flakes off, that can't be fixed. And if you look really closely, and it's not going to focus well, just a little bit of color break there. Yeah, that's going to get deducted absolutely from CGC. But the way I wanted to use this issue specifically is you can see that the back is dark and the front is dark. So what you're going to see there is spine stress. You can see where part of that spine right there is a little white. That's ink that is flaked off. That's a big thing that CGC looks for. So what you want to look for are spine ticks that break color, and what we call spine stress. And you see that spine stress right there. It's from the magazine being opened and closed and the ink flaking off. Now, next up, you want to look at your magazine in some glare because that's where you're going to see the problems. And you can see here, I've got a little bit of waviness right here. Now, if you don't get your magazine pressed, absolutely you're going to get deducted for that waviness. Pressing, though, is going to take something like that out. But you want to take a look at your magazine and take a look for whatever kind of defects that you can find. This is called a finger bend. Again, this is when the magazine is read, it gets crinkled by the finger, and the magazine pinches right there. There's another one. There's another one. All of these, again, should be able to be taken out via pressing. Here's some more. So if you get your magazines pressed, those will all come out. You won't get deducted for it. If you don't get them pressed, then you're going to get deducted for this. Same thing here. Got a little bit of a crease. That should come out in pressing. But if you don't get it pressed, you're going to get deducted for that. Now, here's something that we see a lot with full color magazines, either on the front or the back. This is a purple back on this magazine here, and you can see very clearly that ink has rubbed off. So this magazine was likely stacked on top of another magazine or sat on a table and rubbed over time, and that ink has just come off. Almost looks like, in this specific shot, it's kind of a sky shot. They almost look like stars, but they're not. That's actual ink that has come off. CGC is absolutely going to downgrade you for this. And depending on how severe it is, and this is fairly severe. So there's a bunch of it over here. There's a bunch of it over here. There's some down at the bottom. You can see it there too. My guess is this is at least 1 full point deduction for all of that's happening there. Got a little bit more waviness at the top here. Again, color hasn't been broken, so that'll get fixed in pressing if you do it. If you don't press, you're going to get downgraded for it. Here's a better example of a spine tick right there at the spine. And again, this one hasn't broken color. Oop, actually it has. I take that back. So there's a spine tick that breaks color. You can see that the color's chipped off right there. Let's talk about the point deductions that you're going to see for these sorts of things. I mean, this kind of waviness, you don't get that fixed. That's easy, a half point all day long. If you've got multiple of them like this magazine does, you're going to get point and a half, 2 points for all of these defects and bends and finger bends and spine ticks and all that sort of stuff. Spine stress like this, probably going to get at least 0.2 to 0.5 deduction for that. Again, that can't be fixed. And spine ticks that break color, you're probably, depending on how long they are, the shorter they are, the better. And obviously how many there are. So I've got several on the back here. I'm going to say these spine ticks that break color on the back, probably going to give me another point. So let's take a look at everything and I'll estimate the grade on this issue here. Now I'm going to press this one before I submit it. So a lot of these finger bends and those sorts of things are going to come out. I've got some spine stress that's a problem. I've got spine ticks that break color on the back, and I've got color rub all over the back. My grade estimate on this issue is an 8.0. Okay, next up, let's talk about square spine issues. So all modern Sports Illustrated issues produced since 2020 have been square spines. Sport magazine vintage issues, lots of other things have been square spine issues. By the way, this is the current PSA magazine. This is the short print Jordan version. Shout out to my buddy Lou who sent this to me. But I wanted to talk about something very specific about square spines, and you can see there are no staples in this magazine. This is a glued magazine, but the problem that this creates for you is now you've got a 90-degree angle there on the top, and you've got a 90-degree angle there on the back. And what that does is it creates a lot of problems for color to rub off. So something to be really careful with when you're looking at square spine magazines. You can see colors chipped off there, color has chipped off there, tons of color has chipped off right there. Square spine magazines are difficult. That corner's a mess down there. Just based on all of these color problems alone, I mean, you could see them. Multiple all over the place. Back looks pretty good. But these are going to be really common in square spine issues, so keep an eye out for it. Assuming that I can press out everything else in this magazine, I'd say that these color problems here that pressing is not going to fix, this is probably an 8.0 to an 8.5 at best. Something to be aware of with your square spine magazines. Next up, let's talk about dirt and mold and foxing and just general, kind of filth that accumulates, especially on vintage magazines, of all sorts of kinds. So you can see here, I've got some staining, looks like to be some red ink staining. You can see on this magazine, there's just a ton of dirt all over this magazine, all the way up there. I've got a ton of dirt all the way around the bottom. Back's mostly color, so not that big of an issue there, but the bottom part, so staining, mold, foxing, all of these things are going to be big deductions from CGC. So again, if you get your magazines cleaned and pressed in advance, some of these things you can get out. Basic dirt like that. I mean, this one's dirty. It's going to take a long time to clean this magazine, but you should be able to, again, get it to a point where it's not going to be nearly as big of a deduction. But dirt is a big, big problem. And if you don't get it cleaned, before you press it, you're going to get a big deduction. Let's assume that there's not all these bends on it. I would say just from a dirt standpoint and a staining standpoint alone, if everything else in this magazine was perfect, this is probably an 8.5. Okay, so for this shot, we're going to talk about two different things because this one's got a lot of problems. Number one, we're going to talk about staples, specifically staple rust. So as you can see here, that staple is rusted, and not only that, but the rust is leaking onto the pages. Got to check your vintage magazines for staples. I don't know that I've ever seen staple rust on a magazine, from 1980 and newer. And even still fairly rare in the 70s, but certainly the 50s and 60s. Check all of those magazines for staple rust. Staple rust can easily take you down anywhere from half a point to a full point for minimal staple rust. If you've got severe staple rust where it kind of goes onto the paper, and you can see a little bit of it here, this isn't as bad, but some of that rust is leaking onto the paper there. I've seen staple rust take down a magazine 3 to 4 full points when it's severe enough. So really, something you've definitely got to keep an eye on is staple rust. And then this takes me to part number 2. The interior pages matter. You need to go through all of your interior pages. Now let's look at something here. See, that's a crease that even with pressing, that's not going to come out fully. So CGC isn't going to deduct you a whole lot, if any, for that. But if it's severe and it's on multiple pages, you'll get a minimal deduction for that. So you're probably going to lose a half a point to a full point on that. But there's something else in this one, and there it is. This is why you've got to check all of your interior pages. Somebody just ripped out this huge chunk right here. Yeah, you're going to get destroyed for that. I mean, you're probably going to lose 2 or 3 points for having a massive chunk out of it like that. So interior pages matter. Check your rust for staples and check all of your interior pages so you're not missing huge chunks like that. Okay, so let's take a look at an issue, and I'm going to give you a grade assessment on this one. So this is Mike Tyson when he got knocked out by Buster Douglas. Came out on February 19th, 1990. I've already pressed this. Most of the defects that can be fixed in pressing have already been taken out. You can see it's a very clean issue. Got a couple of bumps there that were just too severe that wouldn't come out in pressing, but everything else is very nice, very clean. That guy right there is a killer. So you can see that there's a spine tick right there. It's about 1/2 inch long. It's deep. That's going to be probably a full point taken off just on that. I've already looked at the interior of this magazine. It's in great shape. There's no dirt that's on it. There are no water stains. You can see here in the glare, everything looks really good. Corners are very clean. The spine is clean with no spine ticks on the back. But what we got right there is a crease that breaks color. Again, was able to press out the actual crease, but once the ink comes off the magazine, you're never going to fix it. So I've got 2 major flaws and 1 minor flaw. The minor flaw are some of these finger bends here where the paper was damaged. They got improved by pressing, but not taken out completely. I've got my major spine ticks that breaks color. I've got my major crease that breaks color on the back. My grade estimate on this one is going to be an 8.5 overall. So that's some of the basics about what I look for when I self-grade magazines, and hopefully that'll help you out a little bit. Self-grading and getting good at grading is not something where you can just submit 20 or 30 books and consider yourself an expert. It takes repetition and it takes time. I've had well over 1,000 comics and magazines graded by CGC over years and years and years of doing this. So it takes a long time to get good at it, but there's no better time to start than right away, because the last thing you want to do is think that, I've got something here that's going to be really collectible. And because you don't have strong self-grading skills, it comes back at a significantly lower grade and not nearly as collectible as what you thought it would be and what you hoped it would be. I'm always available to help with questions on grading or anything else. I hope you enjoyed this video. Follow me on social media. YouTube, my audio podcast, all that stuff. It's the same username everywhere, CGC Sports Illustrated. Thanks for watching.